Hello, and welcome back to our playthrough of the Auroran campaign here in EV Nova. So, when we last left off, we were having issues triggering the next chain in the Auroran storyline, and you may notice a couple subtle differences between when I stopped recording that and now. For one, we're no longer in the Heron system, we're now in the Dany system, and we now have a full complement of Auroran escorts, or Abomination escorts. This is just something I went and did because I realized why the previous or the subsequent mission wasn't firing. It is not tied to a landing chance. It is not tied to the planet you're supposed to be on. It is tied to your combat rating. And it requires a combat rating of, I believe, 10,000, which I believe corresponds to deadly. So all I did is I went and off-camera blew up way too many ships. And this is the result. We now have a deadly combat rating. We now have a full fleet of abominations to back us up, and we can finally get on with the story. I debated whether or not to include that in the playlist, but ultimately I decided that it wasn't particularly interesting. Believe me, I had recorded it and everything, and then decided no one really wants to watch this, so I stopped halfway through. But see, true enough, now that we have a deadly combat rating, the first time we go back to Heron and go to the bar, we get the next link in the chain. So, you are sitting at the bar, trying to banish the ghosts of the past. When your wristcom beeps an incoming message, you look down and read that you've been challenged to a duel by Ambrosia, Thurkir of House Moash, to be held in the Great Hall of Aurora. Wearily you get to your feet and make your way to your ship. Curran, from his hospital bed, informed the House Elders to expect this challenge, as the Moash will be trying to win back some honor. Curran has asked you what you intend to do when the challenge came, but you told him you had no idea. Now you do. The Moash will try to win back some honor, and for taking the lives of your lover and friends, they will pay the ultimate price. They will lose their position as First House. You reach your ship and blast away. You are going to relish this. So I do have to kind of wonder, for people playing through this for the first time, if you didn't have access to the things that caused the missions to fire, oh no. Bad idea. I am flying the best ship in the galaxy. Your blockade isn't going to do anything. Alright, that was effective. And I don't think we lost more than one escort. No, we did not even lose one. Pretty nice. What was I saying? Yeah, I think it'd be confusing to a new player to wonder why their mission isn't firing, no matter what they do. But you really just have to grind up the combat rating. Alright, so you land on Aurora and march to the Great Hall. The news of your defeat of House Moash has spread far and wide, and many line the walkway to catch a glimpse of the man who stops an entire fleet. The hall is packed tight, with spectators to see the combat between Thurkirs, an event of great rarity. Ambrosia stands across the ring from you, his tattooed flesh glistening. You casually strip off your clothes and stand before him. The other three Thurkirs stand between you. You recognize Chorga the Insane of Dany House, Jamuga Bloodspiller of Tekel House, and Georga the Painted of Vela House. They nod to you, and you see respect in their eyes, by tradition. Amoroso speaks first to inform all present of the meaning of the duel, and then you reply, before fighting, but not this time. Carhalarn of House Heron, I, Amoroso, call you to stand for your house in this matter. I demand that you rescind the debt of honor you have over House Moash through a duel, unarmed, before the council. You take a deep breath. Slowly scroll down. Amoroso, you are without honor. Your house has proven treachery cannot be considered a house any longer. Having plotted to cheat the Auroran Empire of its independence, it did not even have the integrity to step down as First House in the face of incontrovertible evidence. I don't know if that's being used correctly. Just when battle crew from House Heron stalled the cowardly Moashi attack of the three fleets on the Harani heartland, and gave you the greatest military defeat of the century. I will not lower myself or the honor of my house to do battle with you, Ambrosia. The honor of your house stinks more than the air that comes from your ass. You and your house are a blight on the Auroran Empire. on all the Auroran Empire stands for. You turn your back on him and hear the sounds of a struggle. You turn to see Ambrosia being held back by Chorga, Jamuga, and Jurgen. Georgin? I'm not sure you're supposed to pronounce that one. Yet even as you look, Ambrosia breaks through and rushes you, swinging his fists like a club. You duck beneath his blow, and continuing your spin, ram your elbow into his ribs. You feel satisfaction as his ribs snap with a loud crack. The look of surprise on Ambrosia's face has not time to change as you spin around and smash your other elbow into his nose, driving broken bone into his brain. Ambrosia falls from your prolaxing blow like a felled tree and skids slightly on the floor. Silence descends on the hall. Chorga, Jamuga, and Jorgen step forward and demand the electing of a new first house, and within the hour, the Moashi have been ousted and House Heron unanimously voted to take their place. The task of forming government takes some time, but before too long the disgraced Moashi have left Aurora, and House Heron is in residence at the heart of the Empire. You wish that those who have gone before you were here to see the day of triumph, but somehow you know they are watching, and that the Hall of Heroes echoes with songs of Harani valor. So there we go. We have supplanted Moash as first house. And you see here in the description of the vignette, it talks about the Moashi are first house. If we leave and land again, it now says that we are. Until recent events, the Moashi house was the first house, but now it's the Haran house. So we did it. We have taken control of the Empire for House Heron. I believe this also has some effect on our reputation. Indeed, we are now officially liked in the Moashi quadrant of space, where we definitely were not before. The only places we're disliked are the Federation and the pirate systems. We're even liked in the Polaris, that which we can see at the time. So now, we actually have to, now we've won the Empire, get down to the tricky work of setting up a functioning government, and that is something we do have to do. But for now, we're back to the same old song and dance that we have to get the mission to fire. I can't remember if it's here or back on Heron. We're going to check both, and then we're just kind of try to trigger it. That is unusual. So this is a trader class ship. You can see by the indicator here, it's a trader, but it's flying a distinctly Federation scout ship, which is usually not available unless you are a member of the Federation military. The only time you can get them, at least without disabling and capturing them, is when you're doing the Federation storyline. So it's always weird to see ships like that. Occasionally you see similar Auroran ships marked as traders, and it's kind of like, that's not... I mean, I guess it is realistic because strange things happen, but it's just weird. It's a rarity, let's put it that way. So I currently like all of our outfits here. I just want to get this mission to fire. Yeah, we have no active missions. And it can't be our combat rating this time because Deadly is as high as it goes. There we go. It's just probably a, if I had to guess, a 50% chance. I don't have the percentages in front of me right now. Alright, initial the other houses, stick the boot to the remaining Moashi fleet. You only stop the other houses when it gets out of hand. Before too long, you were seated at the first house's position of the Great Auroran Council, besides Curran the Silver Arm, so named in honor of his new cybernetic limb. The other four houses quietly await the Thurakir's address. Brothers and sisters of the Auroran Empire, you begin. The days of fighting among ourselves must end. In disunity, we will stay under the boot of the Federation. They take our lives, take our resources, treat us with disdain, and fail to see that we are their equals, if not their betters. We have been at war with them for generations, but the days of stalemate are over. Soon we will begin a campaign against the Federation, the likes of which that have not been seen since the days of early contact. Look about you. Are our differences so great that the Auroran nation cannot push forward? We will go to win our right as the preeminent warriors in the universe. All I ask is that you are patient, and keep the fighting amongst yourselves limited. I have a much grander vision in mind. House Heron believes in that vision. Do you? The hall erupts in the cheers of the massed warriors. You take it that they agree. Your first logical step is the signing of a treaty with the Polaris. You tell the Great Council that the Polaris have the most advanced technology of the known universe, and while the Aurorans would win a war with them, the cost would be extremely high. You outline a plan in which you will travel to Polaris space, and outline all that you have said to the Council. The Polaris, you feel, despite their fierce reputation, are not interested in large-scale loss of life. If you explain that the Empire will soon be taking control of the Federation, and all Federation space, then they will have to come into contact with the Auroran Empire sometime. If you are excuse me. If you are able to interact in peace, then there will be no further need for bloodshed. The other houses agree, and so you head for Polaris space. Alright. So, they have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships are absolutely terrifying. And they're going to listen to us who have chain guns and railguns. I mean, it makes sense. We do outnumber them pretty fiercely, but if you look at the fighting along the Auroran... Whoops, I don't want to actually do that jump, and there's no way to deselect with a hotkey. If you look at the fighting along the Auroran Polaris border, it's not even close. It's not even close. The same is true if you hang out in the Cania system, which is the easternmost part of Federation space. Whenever the Polaris ships come in, even if it's like a Sprite or a Manta, it just melts. It's not, or I should say the Federation that go after it just melt. It does just fine. Alright, gotta land on the listening post. The greatest test of my skill. I'm not going to read this, but it does talk about the people who go off to fight the Polaris to get their purple battle tattoo. Alright. So, I'm not going to bother fighting all these marauders. It's just not worth my time. Since we're liked up here, it's going to be a pretty easy mission. We're just going to jaunt up to... yes, I now remember why I don't like Polaris space. I can't pronounce any of the names. I'm going to go with Kalari. That's how I usually say it in my head when I'm playing. I'm going to jump up to Kalari. I think the Auroran campaign, I think after this, we're going to do the Rebellion. Because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I actually have that one entirely recorded. It's one of those oversights that I finished up with the... What did I do before that one? Jeez. Pirate? Finished up with... No, Pirate was first. Finished up with the Velos campaign, and then thought, gee, what am I going to do next? And so I said, I'm going to do the Rebel campaign. So I recorded all of it in like a day, and then started the Auroran one right after. And I started posting the Auroran ones, and just thinking like, alright, this is in order. And then I realized halfway through, I think episode 2 or 3 of this campaign, like, oh, yeah, I've got an entire campaign on backlog now. But I don't want to publish them concurrently. I think that is, I'm just not, it's not something I want to do at the moment, let's put it that way. There's a limited amount of content for EV Nova, and I don't want to burn through all the campaigns immediately. You're met by a very graceful individual at the foot of your ship's ramp. Good day, Auroran of House Heron. I'm Miranda. Miranda shows up in like every campaign. Yeah, I think every campaign. Maybe not the pirate one, but other than that. How do you know my name, you ask, surprised. We have followed your career for some time, Leroy, you gasp. No one has ever called you that in a very long time. Because that's, of course, our Federation name. We have been pleased with the levels of skill you've achieved. We even heard your Thurkir's address, and I must say the Polaris found it very interesting indeed. Be pleased to come with me, for I am authorized to discuss matters of state with you. So it is mentioned in the Federation campaign that the Polaris have spies everywhere, and Miranda kind of heads that up, so it's not surprising that they heard about it. You prepare to leave some hours later. Your time with Miranda was strangely calming. It was good to discuss important matters without having to raise your voice, but you are amazed by the outcome. The Polaris will form a treaty with the Auroran Empire, under the condition they are allowed to become a 6th house. The Polaris are numerically few, fewer than one Auroran house. They have also stipulated that the rebellion against the Federation must be prepared to accept Auroran ascendancy. First peace, then only then war with the Federation. Okay, so we're going to have to ally the rebellion, and then we'll sweep in and tackle the Federation. I think that's what they're trying to stipulate here. You are now making your way to meet Frandl, who seems to be in charge of the rebellion's intelligence operation, on the Goliath in the South Manchester system, which is great, that has a hypergate. Miranda has arranged the meeting. You begin to see why political solutions take so long to arrange. Yeah, we spent a lot of time being the blunt hammer, and now we actually have to do statecraft. So, Kel-R-E. That's why I call it Kalari. Is that correct? Doubtful. Is it what I'm going to keep calling it? Absolutely. So, because we have to get to a system all the way over here, we're definitely going to use the Hypergate system. The closest one that I can think of is in Cania. Luckily, we are not attacked on sight, despite having a very large and very terrifying Auroran warship at our disposal. For, again, it's kind of immersion breaking, but at the same time, I don't think the Federation Aurorans are formally at war at this time. It's kind of a cold war, so I don't think they have reason to just attack us outright anyway. And yet they skirmish on the border, so I don't know. Just one of those things. If I ever make a plugin, it's going to make it so once you buy a ship of a easily distinguishable faction, they'll just go for you. Like that just happened with the Aurorans and the Polaris. Gee, I thought you were going to be a 6th house. You're fitting in nicely already. Attacking the other houses. I believe they also do stipulate that they're not going to share all their technology all at once, because can you imagine Auroran warfare with laser guns? It's not going to end well. I say that, but the trip hammers are kind of laser guns. But with, what are they called? Manta lasers, manta rays. Alright. Nothing of interest in this system. So we're actually going to route through Rebel space. Why we couldn't just meet them up here, I'll never know. But hey, neutral ground and all that. The hypergates do make life so much easier. And we want Goliath. A very important planet in the lore because, of course, it is one of the few remaining non-devastated, not Polaris, Velos worlds. You meet with Frandl in a dimly lit bar in Goliath. He shakes your hand and offers you a seat. You wonder how many of the people in the bar are rebel operatives. You have a feeling that Frandl is pretty thorough, leaving nothing to chance. But then, like most non-Aurorans, he would be afraid of dying. So that's Auroran diplomacy there for you. Hello, Karhalarn, he says. For a master spy, Frandl does not exactly look the part, but then you guess that's the whole point. Miranda has told me what you intend, and I have in turn spoken with the Rebel High Command. We have already reached an impasse. The rebellion will not support the Auroran Empire if it conquers the Federation. I'm afraid we feel your bad system of government is little better than the Federation's worse one. And what would it take for the rebellion to come on board, you ask? Well, for starters, a judicial system would be good, implying there is no judicial system in the Auroran Empire. By the time you have some idea of what the rebels want, you see that they are not too different from the Aurorans. By appealing to the sense of a common enemy and promising you will do your best to form a judicial system, whatever that is. See, that's ridiculous because we are from the Federation. We should know what a judicial system is, but it's funny. It is clear that the rebels may not be all that hard a nut to crack. It appears they are tiring of their protracted war with the Federation, and if certain expectations were met by the Great Auroran Council, then the rebellion would join the Empire as a 7th house. You tell them that the proposal must be put before the Council. You've also decided that the Auroran Empire needs a system other than trial by arms for the resolution of conflict. The smallest of matters cannot be too small for the leaders of a house, and a Thurikir's Council may be worth creating. You will return to Aurora to lobby the Council. So we actually have to reform our government. Thankfully, this is not as hard to do as, say, CK2. We're just going to make a quick jump down to, I believe, Aurora. And this is going to be the last episode, because we are very close to being done. I think it's going to be all statecraft and reading. The only war is the war on my throat. It took weeks. The Council finally decided to allow the Polaris to join the Empire as a 6th house, only if they were prepared to share their prodigious technology. The Polaris may balk at this, and you know that the matter will have to be discussed with Miranda. The matter of the Thurikir's Council was more contentious. The Thurikir's Council would solve matters in a fair and just method. Appeal to the Thurikir's Council required sponsoring by a warrior or an elder of any house. The Thurikirs will hear and debate the case. The arbiters will then vote on the matter and make the decision, and the decision is carried by the majority. If any house does not comply with the ruling, then the other houses and the Rimmertons will wipe them out. That's one way to do it, sure. And a very Auroran way to do it, too. You had to call in your debt of honor to have the Thurakirs Council created, but your brother Thurakirs finally agree on your vision. Fantastic. And now, does it immediately give us the next mission? No. Now we have to get the next mission to trigger, which is going to be signing all the papers. And then there is the final, actually doing stuff mission, which I just remembered. So I think we have to, let a day pass and then land back on Aurora. So we're just going to use the hyper gates to accomplish that, because that's just what we do. There we go. That's the usual way these things go. You discuss the possible entry points into Federation space from the Auroran border. It is most likely going to be through Roughneck territory. Curran waves a silver limb towards the ceiling. The only problem is the poxing Roughnecks themselves. This is, in fact, a reference to Starship Troopers. Every time I've considered attacking the Federation, I stumble on the Roughnecks. I have to admit, they would probably hold any advance long enough for the Federation to reinforce the area and push us back. So do the Roughnecks have anyone who would take them apart? I know that our warriors would be able to take them, but we don't have time. We have to skip through the system and push on into Federation space. You think about the possibility when Curran suddenly slaps the table. I know who to get. He beams at you. Listen, by the time you get back from meeting the Polaris and the Rebels, I'll have someone else... Wait, we just met with them. I'll have someone else to meet you. You finish your drink and think over the upcoming message. Very confusing. I feel like that... I don't think you can get this before the other ones. That's a little bit weird. You have a sneaking suspicion that the Rebels will agree to your terms, if only because they don't want to be ground into pulp between the Auroran and the Federation. The Polaris may not agree to share the technology, but if you can bring them to the table, then the likelihood of victory over the Federation is good, if you can get the Polaris to agree. You decide to meet with Miranda again, and you send a signal into Polaris space asking her to meet you on Nilar Camoria in the Nilcamoria system. Okay, so we do have to go meet with them again and get approval. Still, it's phrased in a kind of funny way. At least I think so. So once again, we're going to jump, and meet them, thankfully this time, at the closest system, well, second closest, I would say, to Auroran space, get them to sign the papers, and all will be good. Pronouncing the Auroran system names, people's names, is going to be quite the challenge, especially because after the Rebel campaign, that campaign's next. Because I think I will end with the Federation campaign. Seems like a good way to end it. It's kind of... At least I think it's kind of a what-if scenario. Fun fact, when they were still discussing maybe doing a sequel, the Auroran campaign is the chronological end. Your meeting with Miranda is remarkably brief. The Polaris consent to share their technology over the next century, as immediate introduction of weapons to each of such power would tear the Auroran Empire apart. Exactly. The Polaris are more than happy that the Council has consented to take them as a sixth house. You tell them to wait for you to contact them with plans. Your next step is Goliath. Franda will be waiting for you, and so you set off without delay. You secretly hope that the Rebels will take your offer. While you know that you would ultimately win any war with them, it makes you uncomfortable to think about a guerrilla war. Aurorans do not think highly of that sort of fighting, which would give the Rebels a huge advantage. Alright. It'd be so nice if this hypergate here was not ruined. There is a mod to fix all the hypergates that are destroyed, but I do not, I don't use it. I feel it kind of takes away from how the game itself interacts with the narrative, because this is supposed to be an isolated part of space, and so if you have active hypergates, then that's kind of not congruent. But, you know, with Derelict, that's always fun, but we're not really in the need of 75,000 credits or a pirate fight. Although we could definitely win almost any fight that we would attempt here. And maybe after we get this campaign wrapped up, I will do a little bit of planetary conquest, just as a bonus episode. Who doesn't like bonus episodes? Alright, jump, jump, jump. Moash. Not gonna bother to go to Vela, because even now, why did we ever go to Vela? And we're here. I don't know why traders are attacking us, but they're not gonna last long. Oh, they're all called Prodigal Son, that's why. Uh-oh. That's actually a problem. And that is why you never annoy the cryptpods. Well, didn't see that coming. Alright, 1 second. Thankfully we don't play hardcore mode. Although if we did, we would just have an escape pod. But that does set you back a little bit. Alright, so we're probably going to want to afterburner and flip around and blow everything up. And hope there aren't any crypt pods in the system. That's hilarious. They weaponized a Leviathan. Pathetic. Frandl listens intently to your proposal. The Auroran Empire feels that the Federation is without honor and a destructive and evil power base in the universe. The Auroran Empire wishes for all people to be represented in the government of the universe, or in the governing of the universe, and as such would prefer if the rebellion were allies. The Thurikir's counsel is sufficient for Frandl, but he tells you that he needs to speak to the Rebel High Command before agreeing. The rebels would be known as the New Federation, and would only be allowed to hold 20 systems maximum. Frandl thinks this is fair, so long as the rebels get to pick which systems. You tell him that they would have to lobby the Great Auroran Council. He suggests that you return to Aurora, and that he will contact you when with the High Command's reply. Alright. I have to wonder why we don't just send, like, other people to relay messages, but hey. I guess I'm kind of the ambassador. As well as being the Prime Minister and the only one who does any fighting. But, whatever. I'm the main character. Curran meets you in the bar and sits down. He is excited about something. But with all the toing and froing lately, you are starting to wonder whether or not it is worth the hassle. It would probably be easier just to kill everybody, you begin. Ha ha ha. Curran laughs. I have set up another meeting for you, but this one is pretty easy, Curran begins, taking a long draw of ale. I know the man very well. In fact, he was a battle brother to Tekrach in the early days, a great warrior, Archandar, otherwise known as Imman Flanagan. He is the leader of the Wild Geese. Your interest is aroused. I have informed him of the change of situation here, and how the Federation has been trying to set up the Wild Geese. Once he knew of their plans, he was interested in our proposals. He wants to meet with you in New Ireland. The Wild Geese are perfect for holding the Roughnecks at bay, while the main force of Auroran warriors push forward into Federation space. A message arrives just before you leave. Frandl reports that the Rebel High Command has agreed to the Auroran proposals. He advises that an attack on the head of a bureau, a woman named Crane, would throw the entire Federation into confusion. The easiest time to kill her is when she travels from the Bureau headquarters in New England to Seoul. Apparently, in 5 weeks, she will be dropping by. You quickly dispatch to the Polaris. The signal to attack will be the death of the head of the Bureau. The Polaris will then attack from their shared border. This, combined with an all-out attack by the Rebellion, and the push from Auroran space, you see how the plan might work. You quickly check the chronology. You tell Curran to mass troops on the Federation border. His signal to attack will come from you. You quickly head for New Ireland. So, you may recall earlier we actually fought the Wild Geese, and now we're going to go meet with them. This is something that has differing dialogue depending on whether or not you got into the Auroran storyline via the Wild Geese mini storyline. We didn't, so we have the generic dialogue. But it really isn't much different. It's just kind of Imman Flanagan saying, you know, hey, look how much you've grown. But regardless, much like Miranda, Eamon Flanagan is one of the major players in the universe, and so I was hoping we could jump before it's too late. Not to be the case. So, back to it. And hey, we're Auroran. Let's blow him out of the sky. So you just heard there, that was a Rage gunboat firing off Polaris Wraitheye. Just to show that the Federation does get some pretty interesting toys. So we're gonna turn off 2x speed, tell our abominations to get to it, and we're gonna try to bait out all of these Hellhound missiles. Because they cause a lot of problems if you don't. They're actually a pretty heavy hitter. Yeah, but I think we've got this in the bag. Especially with us distracting them. Yeah. Not to mention that we're just kind of terrifying. And all the destroyers really are good for a missile platform. Once they run out, then, yeah, all they have left is what we're seeing now, which is heavy blasters. Whereas we have ridiculous close quarters abilities. And we're just going to lay into them. They will not survive the ordeal. Yeah, as soon as you get those fusion pulse turrets into range, it's all over. They are but dust. Well done. Well done, my beautiful abominations. Now, did we lose anyone is the question. We did not. We are just that good. Alright. On to Tautha. I don't speak, Irish Gaelic, so I don't know if that's being pronounced correctly, but that's how I pronounce it. You may notice a theme in my pronunciations. You were ushered into a small bar in New Ireland. You look into the gloom to see Eamon Flanagan. Before you can speak, he tells you, "Sit down, boy. I have decided that one day it would be the Roughnecks or us. I have been itching for a reason to wipe those bastards out. I just asked you here to see the savior of House Heron. I have heard a lot about you, boy. I must admit, you are as impressive in person as you are in report." He waves to a seat and you sit down, rather stunned. "I must admit, I miss fighting for House Heron, but I belong here. In truth, we are a very peaceful people, but we have such a knack for violence. I found Heron's style interesting, but it lacks a simple beauty. Simple brutality, sorry." And Eamon continues. You begin to notice that he talks a lot. Yes, he does. And before long, begin to think that if he doesn't stop soon, you'll not make it to kill Crane. However, he does explain that the wild geese once saved the bacon of Razak's Roughnecks. Since then, there has been a simmering feud between them. You somehow manage to escape before your brain gets pickled and stagger to your ship. Don't drink and fly. The signal for Flanagan's to attack will be the death of Crane. You set out at once. So Razak's Roughnecks, Rico's Roughnecks, it's Starship Troopers. But on we go. I think that's actually Eamon Flanagan in the system in his mod Starbridge. We can quickly tab through. Yes, there he is. Greetings, Eamon. But, yeah. Let's go blow up Crane. This is very therapeutic for the Velos campaign, although that one's almost more satisfying. Where the annoyance is removed. And, if you'd like to know more about that, check out the Velos storyline. It's actually a pretty quick campaign. Depressing, but quick. Alright, we are here in Wolf 395. 359? I can never remember. So now we land. As you sit on the launch pad on New England, awaiting your prey, suddenly you get a warning buzz from your sensor array, and immediately see a Federation fleet jumping into the system. Crane must have been tipped off. In the middle of the fleet is her ship. You know that you will be lucky to survive the battle, but with so much at stake, you must kill that woman, or your whole plan will fall apart. With cold resolve, you launch your ship skyward, vowing to succeed, to find somewhere to land, to send off the necessary long-distance signals to the waiting battle fleets. Okie dokie. So, we're going to turn down to 1x speed as usual. We are going to... we are just going to target Crane and tell all our ships to blow her up. There we go. that's really it. And now we get to blow up rage gunboats, which are armed with some limited Polaris technology. Yeah, there's the Wraitheye. That's really the only scary thing they have. And they are scary, don't get me wrong. They're melting our shields pretty easily. Oh, those are Velos. Well, I didn't see that coming. Time to reload. Alright. Actually, we're already set up for this. So there goes Crane. She's the easiest one to kill of this entire contingent. I really don't have to stay here and fight this, but, and they're not going to stay either, it looks like. And so, I won't. But, it's the Auroran way. And the best place to land is probably Corella. Just because it's the closest. So that one was far easier. Go figure, it's easier when the Velos don't show up. I could have told you that. But we're going to make good use of this Wild Geese station, because it's still friendly to us. With Crane dead, you contact the rebels, the Wild Geese, and the Polaris to inform them to begin their campaigns before sitting back to ponder the events to come. You decide that it's probably a good time to head back to Heron to see if there's anything else you need to do. If all goes even vaguely well, the Federation will cease to exist before much longer, and you can settle down for a few weeks at least. Alright. We did it! Somewhat anticlimactic, I do admit. But that fight is not easy. It's just not super difficult when compared to, say, the last fight in the Federation campaign, which is why it'll be a great one to finish up the EV Nova main storyline series with. You know, something to look forward to. Alright, so we're going to set down. You land in the midst of muted celebrations and receive a hero's welcome for your enormous victory. And within minutes, you have been filled in on the events of the last few weeks, and all of it has been good. Never mind the fact that we took the Hypergate through here, so it's actually the same day we took off from Corella. But hey, I guess it doesn't matter. With the death of Crane, the Hounds of War fell upon a largely unprepared Federation. Apparently everything has been going well, and the Federation sent out a signal of surrender only 2 days ago when you were in hyperspace. Before the end of the month, the rebellion has taken over their desired systems, renaming themselves the Federation House, and the rest are taken over by the Empire. It appears as if all your plans have come to fruition. Tekarak would have been proud. You quietly accept the adulation of your fellow Hirani warriors, and, to their surprise, you walk away from the celebrations. What is wrong, Karhalarn? Asked one insipid warrior. We have won the greatest of victories, and most of it can be laid at your feet. Why are you not celebrating? So many have gone before, you whisper forcefully, tears in your eyes. We have indeed won, but I am the first Thurakir, charged with protecting the Auroran people. And how many have I used up in attaining my goal? A penance must be paid, and it must be paid by me. With that, you walk away from the awestruck young warriors, and you take out your laser tattooer, and tattoo your eyelids black. So that for the rest of your life, you can see some of the darkness of death you have inflicted upon those whom you were tasked to protect. So there you go. Edgy. The first act of the new Greater Auroran Council is to free the Velos slaves. The Velos remain long enough to convey their thanks to the Council before passing into the Void. As a parting gift, they give the Council the key to the Shard's final creed. I don't know what that is, actually. They say it will make great sense in later days, and that the creed will save humanity at the brink of destruction. Humanity enters a new golden age. Over the next century, the Auroran Empire evolves. The Polaris smooth the rough edges of the Auroran culture, and the Federation keeps things practical. And the Aurorans bring strength and drive to the table. As Leroy lies waiting for death to finally claim the gutsiest hero of the age, the Velos appear. Crowded around him, they whisper their thanks and slowly fade from sight. So humanity enters a new age full of beauty. They still fight, but only to keep their strength. In 10,000 years, all is forgotten as humanity moves on beyond the physical world. The only thing left behind is a solitary spirit to look after the universe. Long after everything humanity has built has turned to dust, millions of years later, inquisitive younger races hear the name Karhalarn whispered around the worlds they have just discovered, and wonder what it means. So that's a pretty common ending to these storylines you may notice is Transcendence, and then, I don't know, Force Ghost. It's kind of like the Force Ghost from Star Wars. But, there it is. That's the Auroran campaign in its entirety. You know, sans some small alternative dialogue if you were a wild geese before doing the Auroran campaign. It's definitely one of my favorites. It kind of ends sort of abruptly, I feel. But here we are once again on our spiel. So as always, I'll read this because, you know, they deserve it. After more than 40 months, some 100,000 odd pages of notes and background information, 12 short stories, some 1,000 odd images, about 75,000 man-hours, more than 10,000 email messages that take up more than 24 megabytes of hard drive space, more than 10 gigabytes of development files, over 30 meetings, and more than one strained friendship, some of which have remained a little cool. Here is Nova. We hope you enjoy it. Oh, and congratulations on completing one of the major storylines. That's one of 6. Try again and see what else you can find. Good luck and thanks for playing Nova. And so that for us is, from your perspective, 3 of 6. From my perspective, recording 4 of 6. Rebellion is next. If we go to the bar, welcome to the New Sydney Hotel, the best little pub in town. You walk into a happy atmosphere where everyone seems to be enjoying themselves immensely. You notice a group of 6 people toasting each other over some beers and one Coke on one of the high tables near the window. You wonder what they are celebrating. Oh, I wonder. And the holovid isn't anything interesting. It's just same as everywhere. Now, we can't buy the Kestrel. We don't have the money, but I would not trade in the Thunderforge even if I had the money, because the Thunderforge is just so much fun. But for those of you who don't know, or haven't watched the earlier campaigns, this is a reference to the earlier Escape Velocity games. It is a very iconic ship from them. And so here it says, only two examples of this dark and menacing ship are known to exist. This one was discovered floating near a wormhole at the farthest edge of known space, and was subsequently salvaged and reconditioned by a collector of exotic starships before being put up for sale. The only other known Kestrel was privately owned. Leading scientists theorize these mystery ships somehow entered our galaxy from a parallel dimension, meaning the other games. So there we go. You also have metals and opals for sale in this world, just in case you came along with an asteroid scoop. You can mine asteroids until you can buy the Kestrel, which is truly an awful way to buy it. But here we can actually talk to all the devs, all the associated people. I babysit. It pays better. And don't tell me that's irrelevant. It was a hippopotamus. All right. Yeah. Fair winds to you, Thunderforge, says Dreyfus Williams. Dreyfus Williams. All right. So that's that. Ran a little bit over, but I think it was worth it to just get this all wrapped up. Thank you for joining me. I will, I think at some point, return to Leroy here and try to conquer some planets, just because we have that deadly combat rating. If we go to honors, we can actually see that we are the Thorkir first house now that the Heron house is the first house. Everything else is still the same from the old ones. Here are our extras in case you're interested. Our cargo, we don't have any cargo, and here's our general information. Deadly combat rating, so we can now conquer planets. But until next time, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy doing these storylines, and I hope you enjoy watching them. So hope you join me. Next up for you guys is the Rebellion.